Love conquers fear. Authoritarianism needs you to be afraid in order to prevail. Fear causes division, isolation, and cowardice. Fear makes us small. Fear of the future also makes us turn away from what is happening to our planet. Fear keeps us in denial. Fear paralyzes us and makes us unable to take action that would keep us and those around us safe. But love, when we are filled with love, acting out of love, we have courage. Courage comes from the Latin root cor, meaning heart. Courage means to be heart-centered. When we feel connected to the people we love, we have courage. Fear is still present. We fear for our bodies. We fear for our lives. We fear for the future. But when we have courage, we are rooted in something beyond ourselves. We are rooted in our connection to those we love. When we eventually make it through these difficult times, we will look back and we'll see what we were up against. The guns, the masks, the chemical agents, the beatings, the brutality. But we'll also see the defiance, the courage, the strength, fiery, passionate love in action. Today on Resilience in Dark Times, love, heart-centered resilience. You're listening to Resilience in Dark Times. I'm your companion and guide, Michael Glavin. Whatever brought you here, I'm glad you found us. This is a space for honest conversation, practical strategies, and the kind of hope that comes from facing reality together. Let's dive in. Let's start by defining the problem. What are we trying to solve here? What's going wrong? What do I see? What am I concerned about? What I'm concerned about is that most of us go through our lives most of the time identified with our ego. That's where our locus of focus is. That's where our center is. And that's what I called last episode as the small self. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when we're solely identified with that ego. Our society works really hard to keep us identified with our ego. We're told that if we're successful, that we're going to be happy. If we make money, we're going to be happy. If we achieve status, we're going to be happy. So money, power, status, these are ego pursuits. But also many people face poverty. You can be homeless. You can wind up out on the street. And so that sort of, how do I get through the day? How do I get resources? How do I feed my family? That's an ego state as well. And that is important stuff. I'm not saying it's not. It's really important to make sure that you get your needs met, your family gets their needs met, that you're safe, that you're secure. We're in a point in history now, though, with the political situation the way it is, and the ecological situation the way it is. All of those ego-driven goals are in doubt. An authoritarian state can take away your money. It can take away your status. It can take away your basic security. It can take away your liberty. And it also can take away your life. The ecological climate with wildfires and hurricanes and droughts and floods and famines can do the same. Everything ego-related, body-related can be stripped away. And so if you're ego-identified, if that's where your center is, your locus of power, you're going to be really worried about trying to maintain that. It can be taken away from you. There's threats to it all the time, everywhere. What we need to de-center your ego or transcend your ego. We need something else, a different focus. Yes, those ego needs are still there. They're important. And they can't be your center. Your center needs to reside someplace else. 2 episodes ago, we talked about looking at the planet, looking at our society, tuning into what's painful for you about what's happening as a way to get in touch with your values and your vision of what you want the world to be, and then taking collective nonviolent action for social justice or to restore the planet. So that's a political purpose. That political purpose is outside of yourself. That's what gives you meaning. That's what gives you purpose. And then the ego is in service of that greater thing, the thing that's outside of you. Last episode, we talked about getting in touch with your unconscious mind and tapping into that rich realm of fertility and creativity and ideas and producing some work, a work of art, music, poetry, philosophy, producing something for the world, a gift to the world. And then that work is your center. The ego then is in service of that work. Next episode, we'll talk about spirituality and connection to nature, and then manifesting that connection in service to others. Today, we're going to talk about love and loving presence, transcending your ego through a deep connection with someone else. Each of these ways of being in the world make the sufferings of the ego tolerable because the ego suffering is in the service of something greater, something larger. Resilience resides in connecting to one or more of these sources and letting that power flow through you. You are fighting for social or environmental justice, or you are channeling creative energy to bring a work of art into the world, or you are manifesting the spiritual truth of our interconnection. Or, as we will investigate today, you are letting love flow through you. Today, we will discuss the transcendent power of love. We spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about connection with other people, and that's important. And what I'm going to say today applies to that as well, but I want to focus specifically on one-on-one relationships, that intense connection with one other person or one other being. Romantic love, love of a family member, love of a pet or a specific animal, love of a friend. That's what we want to talk about, that one-on-one connection. They've done studies where they hook people to an fMRI machine. That's a functional MRI machine. And they measure brainwave activity. And if one person is in pain and their loving partner, not a critical partner, a loving partner, holds their hand, their pain is reduced. You can see it on the fMRI machine. The pain centers in the brain become less active. Good relationships combined with loving touch have a positive physiological effect on us. Hand holding, long hugs of 30 seconds or more, snuggling, sexual contact, all of these forms of contact within a healthy, respectful relationship have physiological benefits. Harvard has this ongoing study. It's been going for 85 years now on human happiness. What makes human beings happy? And after 85 years, they come to one conclusion: human connection. Good relationships make people happy. People with strong social connections are happier, they live longer, they physically decline at a much slower rate. People with good relationships have lower rates of diabetes, arthritis, cognitive decline, and other chronic conditions. These relationships can be romantic relationships, but they don't have to be. You can have a robust relationship with friends or family members, and you don't need a lot of close relationships. You need at least one person you can turn to when times are tough, and to be there to celebrate with you when times are good. We also know the benefits of therapeutic animals. Dogs are a great way to improve your well-being. They're so loving, so present, so affectionate. Research has shown that equine-assisted therapy with horses, help people heal faster and improve their quality of life. And simply watching birds out your window has been associated with less psychological distress and greater psychological well-being. Why? Why does a deep one-on-one connection have this effect? Why does interpersonal or even interspecies connection lead to happiness, health, and psychological well-being? To answer these questions, we need to turn to the most intense form of interpersonal connection: love. When my wife and I were going to get married, we went to premarital counseling with Jonathan Gustin, who's an amazing person. He's a meditation teacher, spiritual guide, and he was talking about how we were in love. And what he meant by that, it's like a cylinder of love, and that me and my fiance at that time were inside the cylinder. We were in love. We're immersed in love. And he talked about letting ourselves radiate that love. and that is a gift to the community. So we talked about during the ceremony, especially, to just let ourselves be filled with love and to radiate that love. And I just love that imagery. And it really felt that way. I really felt that we were just caught up in, luckily, part of this love that was just flowing through us. And we talked about how when you're in love, you are seeing the true state of things. I was seeing my partner as someone who is not separate from me. The illusion of separateness had fallen away, that I could see her for who her and I really were, which was deeply connected. When you're in love, you see the truth of interconnection, interdependence. You see through the illusion of separateness. Last time we talked about the I, what part of us says the I, versus the me. When you're in love, the me gets expanded. So my partner was not part of the I, like she didn't have influence on my volition or any of that, but she felt like part of me. Like her hurt was my hurt, her longing was my longing. There wasn't a separation in terms of priorities. When we're in love, when we're in this state, our partner's needs are as important as ours, and in some cases, more important than our own. And there's not a contemplation about it. There's not even a decision. It's just, that's the way it is. You're acting from this place. And that is an ego transcended place. Schopenhauer talks about this in his work On the Basis of Morality. He talks about how strangers take risks to themselves in order to help other people, even people they don't know. He says that those actions don't come from reason or duty or calculation. They come from a direct intuitive perception that the other's suffering is one's own. He says, quote, "When a man moved by compassion comes to the aid of another in distress and risks his own life to save him from certain death, he recognizes in the other, by direct intuition, his own true being." He argues that such compassion reveals a metaphysical truth that the inner essence in every living thing is one and the same. Our sense of separateness is a mere illusion of the principle of individuation. He says, quote, "The difference between egoism and compassion is that in compassion, the illusion of the principle of individuation is partially overcome." When we selflessly help someone else, we momentarily are freed from egoism, and we're perceiving through the veil of individuality, this distortion, this false sense of separateness. He says, quote, "All true and pure love is compassion, and every act of compassion declares that the barriers between I and thou are, for this moment, broken down." When we are in this state, we have transcended our ego. When my first son was born, I felt like my heart was outside of my body. That the core of my being, the most precious, vulnerable part of myself, my love, was outside of my body. In him, he represented that. And there was like this umbilical cord of energy coming back to me, into my center. And so when I was away from him, when he was distant, I felt this connection to him and like a desire, a longing to be back with him, to be back having him in my arms again. It was such a weird, vulnerable feeling. But that's what this is talking about, that connection, that interdependence, that interconnection, where the other and you are the same, not melded, not smushed together. There's still a distinction there, but it's a sameness while maintaining a difference. It's the I am you and you are me, and your needs are my needs, and your hurts are my hurts. That's what it is, that deep, deep connection. And there's not an ego there. And so that's a decentering of the ego. The ego goes way down. Like then ego could come back, right? Like, oh, now I'm hungry. I'm stuck in traffic and now I'm aggravated. So this is not a state that you stay in forever. It's a seeing through that separate veil. And so, yes, you get stuck in traffic, you'll get hangry, and the ego will kick back in as it should. You need to take care of yourself because you also are a separate physical body. So that physical body has needs. You need money, you need shelter, you need food and clothing. That's all important. And there's this other realm that's more important than those ego needs. And we see this connection throughout nature. We talked about ostriches, and when there's a lion near, the ostrich will go away from the nest and then flap its wings and raise a ruckus to try to get the lion to come over where it is, to leave the eggs alone. But that's an animal putting its own life in danger for its offspring because it has this connection to its offspring, because its offspring's needs are as important, if not more important than its own. That's amazing. That is profound. That is incredible. That's what we're talking about here. That deep connection to someone else that you love, some other being that you love. So what is that? That is nurturing. That is attention. That is caregiving, moving through us, moving through ostriches, moving through otters. I'm sure you've seen the otters clinging together, holding hands, right? And they tie themselves together with a little seaweed in the sea. Like, what is that deep connection? Like, those are two separate physical beings, yet they have this bond, they have this connection. And that connection transcends their own physical concerns. Not all the time, but often. And when it does, that's amazing. And so it shifts the relationship. So then ego becomes in service of love. We then use our body to do the things to support our partner, to support our relationship, to support our children, whoever that object of love is. Our lives then serve that person's well-being, their happiness. And the love I'm talking about here is an experiential love. I'm a psychotherapist and a couples counselor. A lot of couples come into my office, and sometimes one of them says something like, well, my partner knows I love them. Why should I say that? Right? Like, what purpose does that serve? To that person, love is an idea. I love somebody. They know that. We're done here. And love as an idea is important, right? It's important to know someone loves you intellectually. That's an important thing. But love is more than that. Love is also a feeling, the deep feeling of love for someone else. That is also really important. That emotional state of loving, feeling love is important. But I want to say there's more to it than that, too. Love needs to be experienced by the person we love. It's not enough just to have an idea that you love someone and the feeling of love for someone. That's good for you. Being in love feels really good. Having the idea that you love someone, it feels good for you, but that doesn't help the person that you're loving. So I try to encourage my couples to help the person that they love experience their love. So it's not just a thought, it's not just a feeling, it's an experience that comes through presence, that comes through service, that comes through words and deeds and looks and touches. Then if the other person can take that in, they have an experience of love. This is the type of love I longed for from my father, this experiential love. And next, I will tell you a story on how I tried to get that love. Relationships between fathers and sons can be complicated. My father never really knew his father. His father left him and his family when he was just 4 years old. This left him with a deep fear of rejection. My parents separated when I was 4 and divorced when I was 6. Growing up, I would see my father every other week-ish. It seemed that my dad always had one foot out the door on this whole parenting thing. One of the things he often said to me, half joking, was, well, you're on your own, kid. At every major marker of my life, he would say something like, "You're all grown up. You can call me John now." And I would see what was happening. So I'd say, "Okay, Dad." After I went away to college and then to New York and then to San Francisco, I was the one who maintained the relationship. I called him. I visited him. I reached out. He was great when I was with him, but I was the one who made it happen. When I graduated from the California Institute of Integral Studies with my master's degree in counseling psychology, and he did not fly out to see me graduate and did not call, it hit me hard. And I was deeply hurt by it. I would wake up in the middle of the night crying. And I remember thinking, wow, this is some trauma response. This is really intense. And somehow my wife and he talked on the phone. I think she maybe called him and talked to him about it. And then he called me and talked to me. And I told him how I was feeling, and I didn't hold back. I found myself saying to him, "I don't know if you love me. I think that you love me, but I don't know that you love me." What I meant was I needed to experience his love. I needed him to show me that I was important to him. And he said, "What can I do? What can I do to show you that I love you?" And so I said, "I want you to call me. I want you to call me every week and see how I'm doing." And he did. He did. He called me every week. And then I said, "You know what? This is too much." But it felt so good to have him calling me and asking me how I was doing and have us talk. And it was good to say, okay, this is a little bit too much. And so we went to every other week, which was great. And some weeks we wouldn't do it, and that was totally fine. But then I eventually moved back to my hometown, and I broke my hand. I shattered my pinky and part of my hand. And so I had to go to multiple visits to the hospital, to a hand surgeon. And he took me. Actually, his wife drove, so she should get most of the credit. But he doesn't like to get up early, and he doesn't like hospitals. But he went with and sat with me every appointment that I had. And a lot of them were like at 6 in the morning, 6:30, like really early. And so I had to get picked up at like 5:30. And that meant so much to me, just his presence, him being there. That's what I needed, that loving presence. That was me experiencing his love. And it wasn't like he wasn't there with a bad attitude. He was there with kindness and compassion and care. All the things I knew intellectually, he felt for me, but I need to experience them. I remember him asking, "Well, what would it mean to you if I would come to your graduation? What would that symbolize to you?" I'd be like, "It would mean you were there." It would mean that you showed up and you got to see me graduate and you celebrated with me. That's what I want. I want that experience of your love. I want you to celebrate good times with me and to be with me in bad times. That's what I want. That's what love is. That's what love is for me. It was interesting to see myself fight to make him parent me. And he did. His love for me led him through any internal insecurity around not knowing what to do, or worried about not being enough, or a fear of rejection, or whatever it was that was holding him back. And he crossed that divide, and he reached out, and he was present, and he became the wonderful father that I needed. When we think about love, most of us think about the expression of love, serving others, taking care of others, letting others know we love them. This is what I'm talking about in terms of experiential love, letting the person you love experience your love for them through compassion and loving presence. But love is also about receiving love. Most of us are far better at showing love to other people than taking in another's love. Allowing ourselves to be loved. It can feel too vulnerable. It can feel oddly scary. My mom was a proud woman. Her appearance was important to her. At one point, she refused to go to the hospital because of how awful she looked. And her sister had to force her to go. And as soon as she got there, they hooked her up to a bunch of IVs and gave her fluids and were very thankful to her sister for bringing her in because she really needed to be there. Can you imagine? I'm too embarrassed to go to the hospital because of how sick I look. It's ridiculous, but it's true. I think all of us have that in us a little bit. Well, they say that death is not proud. The process of death can certainly be humbling. Sometime later, my mom was diagnosed with leukemia. She had it for about 8 or 9 months at a time. Then she got COVID. And she went to the hospital. She recovered, but in the hospital, she picked up C. diff infection, which is a really awful infection. And I was there to take care of her and take her back to the hospital. She was feverish and delirious and had this infection that made her lose control of her bodily functions. I won't go into details, but there was this moment when I needed to make a choice to be with her in all the messiness of life and death, or to pull away. And I didn't know how I was going to respond in this moment. I could kind of see this moment coming, and I worried about what I would do in that moment. But in the moment when it came, it wasn't really a choice for me. I was drawn to her to help her in all the muck because I loved her. But what was moving to me was that this proud woman allowed me to help her. She allowed me to see her just as she was in that moment, in all of her vulnerability. I can still see her looking at me, embarrassed, but her eyes were searching mine, looking for judgment. But I saw in her reaction that she found in my eyes love and acceptance. She was able to take that in and let me love her, to let me take care of her. It's not that there wasn't some disgust, like that was there. I intellectually knew that the situation was awful, but the love flowing through me was able to silence the feelings of disgust and replace them with compassion. Love can transform these moments where there would be revulsion to a loving acceptance, to a being with, in all the earthiness of life and death. In that moment, I could have pushed her away or looked away or turned away or backed up. Or she could have pushed me away, too proud or too ashamed to let me see her as she was. Julie Kristeva, who's a feminist, Lacanian psychoanalyst, and literary critic, talks about disgust and revulsion, what she calls abjection, in her work Powers of Horror. For Kristeva, we form our identity, our sense of self, in infancy through a process of expelling the muck, the bile, the bodily waste. All of this muck is both a me and a not me, right? Our bodily waste is part of us, but it's also a thing once it's outside of us. But it's a different type of thing because that thing was once part of me. So all of this muck and bile and stuff sit on the boundary between, the border between subject and object, me and the not me. And so because of this, they threaten our identity. They remind us of what we will become one day through death. We will become an object again. We will become a thing in the world. Abjection for Kristeva is the horror and disgust we feel towards that which threatens our sense of self and includes anything that blurs the lines between the self and the other, like corpses, bodily waste, vomit, bodily fluids. Now, overall, I like her take on abjection and horror and revulsion. It makes sense in a general sense. But what's so amazing about my experience with my mother was that I moved towards her in all her messiness. That's which should have horrified me or revolted me, did not. Why? The only explanation I have for what overrode this primal conditioning is love. Love is transformative. Love dispels disgust. Love turns revulsion to loving presence. Anyone who's taking care of an infant that they love knows this. As a parent, I did so many gross, disgusting things to take care of my children, my beautiful boys. And I knew intellectually it was gross, but I didn't feel disgusted. Through love, I was able to see this simply as a part of life. The gross, messy bits go with the funny, loving, cute bits. It's all part of this creature that I love, and it's all okay. Loving my children meant engaging with all of who they were and what they needed. Love allows us to see people in their wholeness, with their flaws and imperfections, their messiness, and accept them. Love them for all of who they are. For Jung and the Jungians, like Robert Johnson, who wrote a 3-book series on romantic love, love is a projection of our unrealized potential onto someone else. For Johnson and Jung, our challenge is to see ourselves in the projection and then actualize that part of ourselves to achieve wholeness and individuation. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and that's a worthwhile endeavor. But for me, Jung and the Jungians, stemming from Freud and all the way up through the Lacanians, which includes Julie Kristeva, their worldview is profoundly lonely. It's based on absence, lack. It's all about projection and transference. And yes, that does happen. There certainly is that in the world, but there's also connection. There is real contact between people. There is love, a love that sees the person as they are and not only accepts them, but cherishes them, tends to them. But not only that, when we love, we see not only the person as they are in all their good qualities and bad, we also see their potential. We see our beloved as they could be. And this is the real gift of love, if we can let others see themselves as we see them. So many of us cannot see our whole selves. So I agree with Jung on this point. And so sure, we can try to see our deeper selves through our projections onto other people, or our projections onto nature, or through divination like we talked about last week. And these are all good practices. Or we can see ourselves reflected in the eyes of those who love us. And when we see ourselves reflected there, we can try to believe what we see. How our loved ones see us is who we truly are. Believe it. After I moved back to Chicago, my phone calls with my dad were replaced with breakfasts every other week. And in the years in between the CIS graduation and those breakfasts, we grew even closer together because I told him when he hurt my feelings, and he made repairs. And in doing this, we healed the wounds from childhood. Together, we did the work. So in his last years, we would go out to breakfast and just beam at each other. I loved him so much, and I could feel his love for me. We would talk about philosophy, Jung, The Alchemist, Cubs, whatever. It didn't matter. The best part was our mutual appreciation of each other. I would delight in him and hear his stories from his childhood, and he would delight in me. And that brings us to this week's action item. Then we'll read a short story, and we'll call it an episode. So your action item for this week. When you know you will see someone you like, take some time before you see them, like 5 minutes on the way or before you set out to see them, and really meditate on the qualities about them that you love, the things that just make them them. Could be a sense of humor or their cynical tone or a creative mind, whatever it is. Just take a minute to call those qualities to mind, that person to mind, and just feel delighted to be in that presence, really appreciating who they are. And then when you see them, after a few minutes you're talking or whatever, hanging out, just let yourself connect to that deep appreciation of them and their unique qualities, and just sit in that delight of them. And do this so much so that at some point they look at you funny and say, "Hey, what's going on?" Or "What's up with you? Are you okay?" Or "Are you on drugs?" And then you can tell them what you appreciate about them. You might say something, "I just love the way you tell a story. When you tell a story, you give me these little details about the people, and I could tell you really care about these people in your life. And that I just find that really wonderful and inspiring." Or you might say something like, "I love your playful spirit. And the way you just can play and be free really makes me feel like I can be myself too and be playful as well. Just reflect back to them whatever it is that you see in them that you love and appreciate and adore. This is something I try to practice with my clients. I think it's a really important part of the therapy work is for me to reflect back to them just how wonderful they are. Because so many people, we don't see it ourselves. I also train therapists and help them get licensed. And half of that training is technical and what to do, when to do it, how to work with certain clients. But most of my work is to reflect back to clinicians what they're doing right, how wonderful they are in the room with their clients, and help them take that in. Because most of us, that's hard for us. It's hard for us to see how wonderful we are. So if in this practice, you're helping someone else see how wonderful they are. Okay, story time. This is a folk tale, and the origin is in doubt. I got this version from Ojibwe.net, and so it could be a Native American folktale. I've also seen this story referred to as the Japanese Zen Buddhist folktale. So if you know, let me know. If you can track down the origin of this story, I would love that. Just let me know in the comments. This is called Three Old Men, Wisdom, Love, Wealth, or Success. A woman came out of her house and saw three old men with long beards sitting in her front yard. She did not recognize them. She said, "I don't think I know you, but you must be hungry. Please come in and have something to eat." "Is the man of the house home?" they asked. "No," she said, "he's out." "Then we cannot come in," they replied. In the evening, when her husband came home, she told him what had happened. "Go and tell them I am home and invite them in." The woman went out and invited the three men in. "We do not go into a house together," they replied. "Why is that?" she wanted to know. One of the old men explained. "His name is Wealth," he said, pointing to one of his friends, and said, pointing to the other, "He is Success, and I am Love." Then he added, "Now go in and discuss with your husband which one of us you want in your home." The woman went in and told her husband what was said. Her husband was overjoyed. "How nice," he said. "Since that is the case, let us invite Wealth. Let him come and fill our home with wealth." His wife disagreed. "My dear, why don't we invite Success?" Their daughter-in-law was listening from the other corner of the house. She jumped in with her own suggestion. "Would it not be better to invite Love? Our home will be filled with love." "Let us agree to our daughter-in-law's advice," said the husband to his wife. "Go out and invite Love to be our guest." The woman went out and asked the three old men, "Which one of you is Love? Please come in and be our guest." Love got up and started walking towards the house. The other two got up also and followed him. Surprised, the old lady asked Wealth and Success, "I only invited Love. Why are you coming in?" The old men replied together, "If you had invited Wealth or Success, the other two would have stayed out. But since you invited Love, wherever he goes, we go with him. Wherever there is love, there is also wealth and success." I like this little story. What does it mean? Does it mean if you have love, you have no problems, that suddenly you are wealthy beyond measure and successful beyond your dreams? I don't think so. I don't think that's what it means. I think it means that when you have love, transcendent love, the ego concerns of wealth and success fade into the background. When you have true love, you have enough money. You have enough success. You are filled with all you need on a deep level. So those ego concerns are less important, less crucial. Sure, there still be fears, ego fears, fears of safety and the future and all of that. But love allows us to overcome those fears. Love is the bridge that connects the ego to other people. When we have love, we have heart-centered resilience. Until next time. That's our show for this episode. If something resonated with you, please share it with someone you know. Subscribe to Resilience in Dark Times wherever you listen to your podcasts. And visit resiliencindarktimes.com to connect with our community. I'm Michael Glavin. Thanks for being here. Until next time.